Thursday night was absolutely stunning. Friday night, can we match it? Friday night football was a nice opener too, and we heard the Chief just jumping over the call as he tends to do, so we can talk about that. But a massive game of football coming your way at the MCG. Melbourne taking on Sydney in the second qualifying final. So much to look forward to. Nate's got a top five that was banned, and he's trying to get it up as we speak. Simon Goodwin, the coach of the Melbourne Footy Club, will join us. Josh Kennedy, star from the Sydney Swans. Cult hero, if you don't mind, Russell Robertson, a man that could take hangers. The Chiefs quiz is here, and so much footy to talk about. And I look across at a man who's the captain of this side. I haven't seen him for 2 weeks. I've missed him. It's great to see his smiling face. The big Duke, Luke Darcy, is here. Hello, Darcy. How good was last night?
Pumped, Howie. Brilliant start to the final series. And I think I say this every year. I genuinely, as you drive into the MCG, it's a privilege to sit in the best seat in the house. It couldn't have been any better last night. Cannot wait for the next three finals to unfold. It's exciting to be here again.
Bit of a thrill for me today. Got to pick up my football hero, Jason Dunstall, and had 20 minutes in the car with him, and we were talking finals, and he got me in the mood. Always nice to see the big fella. Hello to you, Jason.
Hello.
Did you pick him up from the right side of the road?
Yeah, no, everything was okay.
It's a bit dirty because you were late.
Well, no, I was on time.
I want to make sure he's got time to speak. That's all.
Yeah, save it for the call where you talk all over us. But at this stage, it's
No,
just
I won't
nice
talk
to
at all
see.
then.
Very,
It's all
no,
right.
don't get.
You're in for a busy night, Browny.
He can throw the toys out of the cot team, but not in a big final. He'll get himself up.
Damien Barrett is here. Just a stunning game of footy. So many stories out of it, Damo. But it was just great to see good football on the final stage.
Yeah, it was. And the big storyline, unfortunately, for it was the goal review system. But it's fortuitous for us as the Friday Huddle to have the producer of our show being the architect of the actual arc. So we'll actually get the rundown of why that was overruled last night.
So we're going to hear from him, are we?
From Luke Tunnicliffe, we will, yeah.
He's going to come on
He's
the show.
gonna come on
isn't
the
he?
big
nose producer.
Something to look
Yes,
forward to.
he's guaranteed us he will, exclusively.
And here he is, the man that always has a smile on his face, Nathan Brown. How are you, Brownie?
Very good, very good. And it's always good to have a smile on your face. It's better to be positive than negative, Howard. And looking forward to what the Chief's got to offer tonight. I love working with the Chief every week. The Duke, he's got his son playing in his first final. I can't wait to see that.
Is he going to be forward or back?
I think he has to be forward by what he showed last week. I mean, he just lit it up. He's
4 shots a goal.
Absolutely.
Third game of footy.
Absolutely. He's better than his old man already. He's only played the 2 games. So looking forward to it.
No doubt about that, Nate, but let's not overhype things too much on that front.
No, we like overhype.
No, it's Triple M, Das. That's what we do.
That's true. We are in an industry of overhype, but I think getting to the bottom of the arc, I'm looking forward. I know Damo's going to do an investigation. And given we've got access to the man who built the arc, who as a journalist would understand, you have to go to the source. So it'd be good to understand.
Well, he's obliged to come on at some stage when we do talk.
And they'll just put their hand up, I suppose, as you do in life, Chief. When you get things wrong, you just own your mistakes.
I think the right decision was reached. It's the process was wrong.
Correct.
What I'm saying, isn't it? Yeah.
Correct, but you can't have the anyway.
They came to the resolution very quickly, didn't they?
Yeah, very quickly.
Really, like 7 seconds or something.
And Tom Brown tells us they did it on the back of the facial expression of the bloke who kicked the ball, Tom Lynch.
So you reckon if he'd done a fist pump, etc., it would have been home?
Would have been right. They would have been factored in, apparently.
Right. Yeah. Extraordinary.
So we need to get Luke to sort it out for us.
So at what stage of the show is that happening?
Luke, when are you going to come on?
Should do it off the top. It's a big issue.
He seems to have gone into
massive issue.
He seems to have gone into the no comment territory very quickly.
He's going to hit the dump buttons then.
We'll speak on his behalf if he goes into no comment, because we have spoken to him off air. We're happy to put that on air if he doesn't front up. Big nose producer.
You've had a big week, Howie.
I did. The week off didn't really turn out. I spent 48 hours on the Shaq tour, which was, Damo, one of the more extraordinary things I've ever seen in life, to be honest. I don't even know where to begin except to say he was brilliant. He was very warm to me. He was very warm and generous with everybody that he met. But he had an entourage, Das, that I've never seen the likes of.
How many people were we talking following Shaq around?
It had to be 25 to 30
Seriously?
dudes.
Really?
25 to 30 dudes.
That were part of the official touring party.
Part of the official touring
All
party.
from the States?
Yeah, a
or
lot
some.
A lot of. He had more managers than you, Damo, which is saying something. A lot of big American gentlemen that just basically walked around and told the big fella how good he was at what he does. An extraordinary man.
I have heard nothing but good about what you did with it, and I mean that sincerely. But in Triple M, we like to look at the other side of it. And,
Here we go.
And we were sent some exclusive behind-the-scenes vision, and I've sent it on to Chief. And given the size of Shaq is officially registered at 153 kgs, and we know that and we know this because that time we put that helicopter down to Geelong, we had to get weighed before we got on it. You check in at 57. So there's basically 3 of you in him, and the vision that Chief is going to take us through here, he's staggered by.
What have you got there, Chief?
It's an extraordinary video. So the big Shaq walks out onto stage to tremendous ovation, we must say. He's got a Richie Beno style creamy suit on.
He did.
He can do whatever he wants, though, can't he?
The big white runners. And as he gets to Howie to shake his hand, the first thing that popped into my head was that Howie could sleep in one of his shoes. This is a man mountain meeting a midget. And he grabbed your hand and your whole arm disappeared.
He did.
It's an extraordinary size difference, Howie. I'm surprised they went with such a peckerwood to interview him when maybe it would have been more appropriate to have someone with a reasonably normal stature.
The first thing you notice about the man is his physical size. I think he's 216 centimetres and he played at 149 kilos. So he's got to be 170 kilos. And his entourage...
So when I said there's 3 of you in him,
Absolutely.
there actually is. Yeah.
He didn't call me anything but baby. So it's like, I've got you, baby, before we go on stage. But unfortunately, Nath, you'll enjoy this. I was just introducing myself as Howie, but the American entourage thought my name was Howard. So they called Howard non-stop for 48 hours. But there was 2 things that hit me how big a deal well, the police escort was a pretty big deal that he had. When grown men met him, they were shaking, just in awe of the man. But I talked about his entourage, who were all lovely fellas, but we had to do the live show on Fox. They were doing a pay-per-view interview of it. And with 3 minutes to go, we weren't sure that Shaq was going to come out on stage on time, which meant I would have to stand up there and give my best 10 minutes of jokes, not knowing he was coming on. And none of the entourage tell the big man what to do. So I said to the big bloke on security with 3.5 minutes to go, mate, I need to go in and tell Mr. O'Neill He's time. On. It's on. It's showtime.
Mr. O'Neill.
And he said, and this is a quote I'll never forget, you can't come in at the moment. Mr. O'Neill is having lotion applied. I didn't know what to make of that. So the big fella's getting lotioned up for the show. And then with 1.5 minutes to go, the bloke said, you still can't come in. I said, mate, I have to go in because I have to tell him we are on in 1.5 minutes. So eventually there's push and shove. The director's losing his mind. Is he going to be on stage? So they let me in and there's 30 dudes sitting around with rap music blaring. And I just went up to him. I'd met him during the day at another event and said, Shaq, we're on in 45 seconds. Are you ready to go? He's like, oh, baby. No one told me, baby. Where's my mic? They put a mic on him. Out he went, and he just lit it up. It was like nothing I've ever seen.
Well, apparently Chief has got 2 lotion appliers as well for
Apparently.
every Sunday.
When he gets the double sizzle.
That's right. You don't get in the way of Chief's lotion being applied.
I was excited for you, Howard, and I felt a little bit disappointed in the end.
Oh, here we go.
Because, it felt like an exclusive. It felt like a Mark Howard exclusive. And then we found out that Hammer had been offered the job before Howie. Right. And then, I'm thinking this exclusive thing. Shaq comes to town and then Howie interviews him. But all weekend, I was just shacked out. I mean, I saw Jonathan Brown interview him. Yep. I saw Daisy interview him. I saw Heater interview him. Billy Brownless. Dylan Alcott was in there. Even Matty Johns. I said every Tom, Dick and Harry in Australia got a chance to interview the Shaq. And it felt like, Howard, that at one point, it was like when West Coast got sick this year and they had the COVID and all the waffle players come in and then just rolled in and interviewed him as well. It seemed like everybody got to go at Shaq.
And I think you're absolutely right about that. And Browny got a minute. Matty Johns got his 30 seconds. And Daisy and Heater got 15, and I had 2 1.5-hour shows. But I don't think we need to dwell on the duration I spent.
Yeah. I tell you what, he has jammed a lot into from the Prime Minister to. I mean, he has packed a lot in. How many days on the ground was he here in Australia?
I think he was here for 3.5 days, and he did that many events. The other thing that blew me away is in the Sydney show, and there was an enormous crowd there. He came out with an NBA championship ring on. I've never seen one of these up close and personal, Chief, and it's
huge.
It's 3 centimetres tall. But he actually said to me that he'd buried his 4 rings with his father, and that was a gift from LeBron James, who had won that ring for the Lakers, and he'd given to Shaq as a gift. So. it's just a whole nother level of superstar.
And as you know, I'm a figures man, Duke.
Oh, here we go.
And I think that there's been a massive transaction. And we all know Howie. We spoke last week. He
Offshore
said,
accounts.
Can you move that 1.1 million
1.1
to the offshore account? And I believe,
So
he's
very
spent 2
2
days.
days. 2 days with Shaq. He's
Very
interviewed him 5
good
times.
sources.
This is
that-
your forte.
That 1.1 that he has,
Yeah.
he can now make that to 1.3. Because I'm led to believe there was
200?
200
200.
crossed hands to our
For
man
2
Mark
days.
Howard.
100 a day.
That's a good rate
Now,
for Howie.
that's
And
outrageous money.
That is outrageous money. I agree.
Hammer's flat.
And we know how accurate you are with these things, Nate. So,
Yeah.
Cash or on the books?
Howie asked
In the
for
offshore.
cash. Howie asked for cash because he's that sort of operator.
Howie, I heard he had a very big night on one of the nights he was here. Did you tag along for that?
No.
I heard it was an all-nighter.
No, I think he did some work on the decks as a DJ, but he doesn't drink. Hasn't drunk since he was 14 years of age, apparently. But I think he got the word out of the camp was a stomach bug at one point. Was the word? But no, it was a privilege to be involved.
Did he frequent a well-known establishment in South Melbourne, I'm told? And
Well, this is where it got awkward because
did you ask the hard question or not?
Well, I didn't have to because we were doing the pay-per-view event with families watching, and the big man dropped the name of this venue you're talking about 8, 9, 10 times. So I don't know if they were part of a sponsorship arrangement, but he did the same thing in Sydney with a similar establishment, it'd be fair to say. But it was interesting. It was good, and I've never met a bigger man. I've never met a bigger... I was trying to think where would I put him compared to people I'd have the privilege of seeing through a work sense. And Lewis Hamilton was the top of the tree and David Beckham. This is 10 times that. It was a whole other level.
So in terms of
whole nother level.
guys, would you be able to sit down and have a shandy with him? Would you, say if you became friends, would you be able to sit down and have a shandy with him?
In what respect?
Well, if you were mates, is he the type of bloke that would sit down, go to a pub and have a beer with you?
Well, he doesn't drink.
That's a good point.
He had just said that.
Or maybe just a lemonade.
Cup of tea.
He was a nice fella, but I'm not sure he's invited me to LA to hang out. No. We need to have a break. We got
Check with Chiefs here. He
top
hasn't said much
5.
yet.
Well, okay. If Sophie's have we got the opener again? Can we listen to the opener again, Tunners, before we go to the break? Just to Tunners has said no.
He's
Upset
cracked
the Chief.
Okay.
Tunners is preparing to come on and give us an exclusive. The man who built the Ark
Yep.
that
And runs the Ark.
spectacularly
So
failed
up next
in a
we
final.
hear what happened with the Ark. How
CEO
many
of the
angles we
Ark.
looked at, righto. The CEO
Richmond
of the
flag.
Ark. Cost Richmond a flag. Righto, that is coming up next. And that's it for Kogan Mobile. This is the Triple M Friday Huddle. Stunning game of football last night. Tom Lynch goes to the little check side. Was it a goal? Was it not a goal? Richmond fans have got one view. Brisbane fans have got another. But Das, I just heard an extraordinary statement from the back of the box.
We
You need to
have,
take over
and
here.
it needs to be explored more because I've been around Triple M for a long time now, Howie, and there was one, Chief goes back to the start, and there has been one rule and one rule only, and that is if you are in the news and something that you are, no matter how uncomfortable it is,
Which it can be very.
and it has happened to all of us, and if you don't like it, if we ask questions of others when it's your turn, you need to
front up.
Front up, Chief. How many times?
Nothing is off limits, Chief.
And how many times do we grill you when you're in the chief executive
right.
chair? on the
Over
board?
and over.
And then you just have to front up and ask a question. So a big story happened last night, Howie, in the first final with the Ark. We have the man who built the Ark. He is Mr. Ark, the snorkel, and he's sitting in the back row there. And there was a bit of controversy around it, Dama. You'll explain the news part of that. And then we'll hear from Luke Tunnock.
We will. So I'm assuming most people listening would have caught up with it now. But late in the piece, the Tom Lynch shot at goal, ruled as a soft call by the goal umpire as a goal, but he did throw it to the Ark. And then very, very quickly, Brownie, as you said before, it came back that they were going to overrule it. The ball went from that kick out down to the Lions forward line. Lions kick goal, win the game of footy by 2
Has
points.
to be compelling evidence to overrule it.
Yeah. Before we do get to Luke Tunnicliffe, who does design the Ark and run the Ark, Tom Brown said something quite extraordinary in my eyes to us last night in the post-match Channel 7 coverage. And I've spoken to Tom actually this afternoon, and he maintains what you're about to hear is accurate, as bizarre as it sounds.
The AFL's position, the preliminary position, is the Ark reviewed all the camera angles and it's viewed as a definitive behind the correct call in the AFL's view was made. Now, I know they look, I'm told, at the player reaction. Lynch reacted like it wasn't a goal, and I think they would have looked at all the evidence from a visual perspective.
We've never heard that before. They judge it off a player reaction.
I was told tonight.
Couldn't.
I was told tonight from a reliable
That's the
source
first time I've ever heard
that they
Tom.
do look at the player reaction as a guide and then look at the evidence.
Now, I personally can't have that, but I have spoken to Tom, and he maintains, and he's standing by that angle. So
it's a good question to ask, though, because I actually posed that question. We covered it on Fox in the studio last night, and I was just talking about it, and I asked the question, would you take into account the reaction from the player? Because if you did, there's no way you could possibly call it a goal. Because the stage of the match, what was at stake, Tom Lynch has just gone, turned around and walked back. None of the players celebrated.
But what if
nobody actually gave any indication that a goal had been kicked?
You're assuming that reaction was to it being a point. What if it was to being sent up for review? He might have had the reaction to, what are you reviewing it for?
He's never been an over-celebrated Tom Lynch.
Hang on. The moment it's left your boot and it's gone through, players would rush from everywhere if he's kicked a goal. This is a final that barely had more than a kick between it all night. And there was nothing.
But I think the players knew, though, Chief. I don't think they knew. I don't think they could tell. They were waiting for the officials to make the decision for them.
Players know, Browny. You know if you've kicked the goal or if you've missed the goal.
But, Chief, I think that's getting away from the cold, hard facts of we all have been educated on this system, which says you've got an umpire that's there. This is for the definitive. It was brought in when Tom Hawkins hit the post and it ricocheted sideways
in the 2009 grand final.
And on the back of that, we had the arc. And the idea was that if you get this inconclusive vision, which is going to happen all the time because we've got posts that only extend so high, we looked at it and we said, inconclusive, go back to the goal umpire.
I wasn't saying it should be used. I was just saying if you were to look at that as one of your tools, you would sit there and say, well, he hasn't kicked the goal.
It's a dangerous game in my eyes if you're using the player's reaction to it.
You can't use it.
Because then if you know that, you're then going to fake your reaction, I think, because there's enough fake
most players would try and bluff anyway if you'd missed a close one like that in such a critical time.
But the AFL have ticked this off this afternoon.
Yeah, they ticked it off an hour after the game, and they've. There's been requests for the categorical proof, Howie, that they say they have got, and Luke Tunnicliffe will explain this.
They wouldn't have had enough time to review every angle, Damo.
I wouldn't have thought
The decision was made in less than 10 seconds.
But that's not even the point. I don't care how many angles they have. None of them are conclusive.
You can't tell when the ball crossed
the
goal
rule
line.
is it should be a goal then. Yes,
of course
it looks like the goal umpire made the wrong decision by calling it a goal. But then...
And I agree with that too.
The method is then...
You have to go with the goal umpire.
If they can't overturn it, you go with the goal umpire, which we've seen time and time again. There's been mistakes made, but that's the way it goes, and that's how consistency happens, and it didn't happen last
time. So
I
I love the comments from Damien Hardwick post-game. He said, if the technology is not good enough, don't use it. If it's not definitive, why are we investing money and not getting the decisions we want? Just go back to using the goal umpire's decision.
Which is sort
of most importantly, Duke, why don't we talk to someone involved with the ARC?
Well, that is why we have exclusive access to the man who built it, Luke Tunnicliffe.
What have you got to say, Snorkel?
He's shaking his head. What are you talking about?
Luke?
The comment I heard in the ad break was a NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, is what he's gone with.
He's got a non-disclosure agreement with who?
But
the AFL.
Obviously, if you're happy with the system and you're confident with the way it's running, you're having a chat with them. I think that's fair.
Or is there some sort of...
trying to hide something, you're not.
Something to hide, you don't say anything at all.
Is there some sort of kickback that he's getting that we need to investigate further?
Obviously a contract from the AFL to run it. I would imagine it's a pretty lucrative one for the people who run it. I would imagine it's a
big
smile key
on
part
his
of the.
So he's getting kickbacks to half-ass a job then, is what you're saying.
Well,
and then refusing to comment on it.
We would put this to him if he chose to put a microphone under his mouth.
Very un-Triple M like.
But Damon, you've done a bit of investigation. We might as well talk about it now as a topic and where we think it sits.
Well, it's funny how let's just move into the opinion side of this now. I was all for. I'm embracer of technology as a rule, and I think sports, when technology started becoming part of our lives, I was an advocate of embracing it from the sports perspective. But we've now had years and years and years of evidence now of it just not working. The human nature and human element to use of technology is still getting in the way. And how you cover the summer sport, the cricket over the course of the summer. I'm staggered we've got the use of technology, Chief, in this situation where if the soft call is out and it's challenged under a certain scenario, that will stand. But if the soft call isn't challenged, there's the same ball clipping the by 1 millimetre, the stump can go either way depending on what the soft call is, and that's not the use of technology which we.
And this is what Warney used to always pull up. He said, "Well, how can the same ball be out and not out, and how do you explain that to a first time coming to the game?"
You can't.
Tennis, to me, is 100% yes.
Yes.
Because you don't see everything. All you see is their graphical representation, whether it's in or out. There can be no debate. It works perfectly for that. Cricket, it opens a whole can.
I reckon tennis is one of the few sports where it works. Swimming, the touch, the introduction about 25 years ago of the touch on the wall. And horse racing, obviously, they've had photo finishes for the best part of 40 years in some form now.
We don't even have the same technology per ground, Damo. So
what
we'll get here tonight will be vastly different camera angles to what we got at the Gabba last night.
But unfortunately, the Gabba is an AFL venue when it comes to playing the sport. It's not one of the random venues that they.
So I have no problem with the current system. I think just execute it properly. And when you have.
So what did you want to see happen last night?
The system is inconclusive. There is no point where you can try and judge a camera angle and suggest that it's either hit the post, you've got conclusive evidence, where you immediately it takes 5 seconds. Juddy used to do it every week here in the box. Inconclusive, go back to the goal umpire, and then you've got a guy sitting.
That's the way it's always been, Duke.
And last night, but for the AFL to say that was a good system. Now, the man who won't talk with his NDA is whispering in my ear saying he believes that they have a chip in the ball and that will be part of the AFL system next year, Chief.
Hang on. Just say that again.
That the man who built the Ark is saying there will be a chip inside the Sharon that will be categoric, Chief. Are you a fan?
Wow.
You open to that?
Well, if it's definitive, why isn't it there now?
Let me jump into that
space.
space.
They've just been working with a London-based chip developer, Chief.
For 20 years, we've been writing articles and expressing articles about the chip being in a ball and being used. It will not be happening next year, does? I can say that with confidence right now. It will not be used for a goal review. Hey, maybe there's only one man who needs to have a proper say on this. Tom Lynch himself was hit up by media today upon returning to Melbourne.
To be honest, I didn't know. I got lost in the lights when I kicked it, so I actually lost sight of the ball. So that's why I reacted the way I did. I wasn't sure. Should have put it through the middle. That's probably my thoughts on it.
What do you make of that, Chief?
Curious comments. Touch of sitting on the fence for mine.
Chief,
You sound like you don't believe him, Chief.
Sounds like he thinks it's a goal.
No.
Chief,
Please,
you watch a lot of EPL football. The VAR is obviously at the forefront of that. Is it definitive? Does it add to the game of football?
It does. It does. I mean, there's a delay when they do a VAR, mostly for offside, and they also have whether the whole ball's crossed the goal line in the net. So from that perspective, I like the correct decision ultimately being reached. But we don't like long delays, and we've got to make sure if we're going to use technology, it does solve the problem. And at the moment, the technology isn't solving the problem. So
it is when it hits the post.
Correct. So
it does in some instances.
So that's my argument.
Yeah.
So why don't we only use it when it's whether it hit the post or not? Because then you get an edge that comes up and it's definitive. One way it's flat line or there's movement on the edge.
And that's what the system is.
And the rest is umpire.
Yeah, that's right.
Inconclusive.
You go back to the last night, you're saying conclusive, all yours.
Yep.
Didn't hit a post, no problems, move back on. Takes 5 seconds and we move.
But didn't hit a post. So there's no need to do a review.
So
because there's nothing to review. It's just my decision is it's goal.
So the Ark has cost Richmond a premiership tilt, Browny.
It appears that way, Damien. Yeah.
And also, obviously, the more decisions that are required to be made by the Ark, the more time the Ark sponsor gets to run on television.
That's true.
So,
Can you check, Brownie?
And the more kickbacks.
In your capacity, can you check the betting accounts of people associated with the Ark? Apparently there was some big,
that's an accusation.
That is
big plunges on Brisbane.
Simon Goodwin to join us next. I think it's time we went to a break.
I wonder he's not talking.
Oh,
Jeez.
counting his
Coach
dough.
to join us next.
This is Nathan Brown's Top 5.
All right, Howard. So I was watching the game last night and unbelievable with Lachie Neale. 39 disposals, 15 clearances. And I just got to thinking how good a finals performer he could be. Is he becoming that? And the best finals performers of all time. And because the top five I had at the start of the week has been banned by our boss, Ewan Giles. So
What was that going to be?
that was the top 5 funniest names in world sport.
Why was that banned?
Well, there was a few that, it was a little bit childish. I'll give you one example. There was a a baseball player over in the States back in the 60s, and his name was Dick Trickle. So that was the sort of line.
And
so
we're not
we
allowed
thought-
to be childish.
Yeah, we thought we'd park it for finals.
A
It's
bit risque, was it?
Yeah, it's a big finals.
Just give
moment.
us one more.
I think we should investigate that a bit more, Howie.
It might be one that comes down the track, Howie, but there were some really good names. So I started this today after watching Lockie Neal last night.
Yes.
Putting together the greatest finals players of all time.
Oh, Nate.
So the top 5 greatest finals players of all time.
Good, Nate.
And there's some players that missed out. I mean, Lee Matthews, one of the great finals players.
Missed out?
Not in
Missed
it.
out.
Browny.
Missed out.
What were you smoking?
Missed out.
Must be a good list.
I wanted to give.
He's on the Gancher, isn't he?
I wanted.
Drop lethal.
I wanted to give.
It's never happened. Ever.
Greatest player of all time.
Never
I wanted
not
to
been
give
included.
Chief an honourable mention. In 86 in the grand final, he kicked 6.
Yeah.
In 88, he kicked 7.
Yeah.
In 89, he kicked 4. In 91, he kicked 6. So 4 grand finals there. And I mean, 87, he pulled out because he probably could have played.
And
probably
they
could
lost.
have
Probably
played,
cost
yeah.
them the game.
So, and then
And didn't get the chief in either.
No
could get the
Chief.
Chief
No
in.
Chief and no Matthews.
Dermot had an unbelievable record. But when I look through that Hawthorn team, they were how good of a team they were, and that's why they were so good.
Did Dermot debut in a final?
Yep.
Dermot kicked
How many did he
5
kick?
in a final.
And that's not good
he
enough
kicked
either.
8 in the grand final as well.
Which
And
was
that's
the record
not
at the
enough.
time.
But here's the list.
And
So
Lee Matthews can't get in.
I'm going to put at number 5 a former teammate of yours that did all his work in Adelaide. He kicked 3 in the preliminary final against the Bulldogs to get them into the grand final. And it was the moments in the last quarter of the grand final against North Melbourne and also St Kilda. So he had 19 disposals and kicked 6 in 97, 5 of those in the last quarter, and 14 and 5, kicked 5 goals in 98, 4 of those in the last quarter. If you remember, St Kilda were up by a few goals and also North Melbourne were up by a few goals. So coming in at number 5 is Darren Jarman.
Chief was his best.
Connell inside 50, belts it towards full forward. Jarman there, with him was Zilla. Jarman again, round the body. That'll do. Oh, that will do. Oh, unbelievable, Darren.
And in those same grand finals, Andrew McLeod won 2 Norm Smiths, and I couldn't get him in either. So at number 4 coming in, and this man won 5 premierships. And what a record he had in those premierships, and that's Kevin Bartlett. So you'll go back to 72 when he was a midfielder. He had 29 disposals in a grand final. 73, he had 26 and kicked 1. In 74, he had 27. And then in the 1980 grand final, he had 21 disposals and kicked 7, Howie.
Jeez.
But added to that, in the semi-final and qualifying final of 80, he had 22 and kicked 6. And he had 17 and kicked 8. So in 3 finals, he's kicked 21 goals in 1980. Wow. Kevin Bartlett, what a player he was. And,
That is man.
you go back and you listen to the commentary, and it wasn't as exciting, so I didn't put the commentary in for Kevin. And then we come to the duck. We come to the
Juddy's.
we
Juddy had a little beef.
he had a big beef with Kevin.
Yeah.
Come to Wayne Carey, and I didn't have the duck at number 1 because when you look through his stats,
You could have.
all the greatest games he had in finals were qualifyings, semis, and prelims. He still played well in grand finals, but look through these numbers. In 94, he had 32 disposals, 10 marks, 4 goals, and in the prelim,
That was against Chief.
24, 14, and 6.
Yep.
In 95, he went 22 disposals, 9 marks, 5 goals. 96, 23 disposals, 10 and 3, 14 marks and 3. And in 97, he kicked 7 and had 10 marks, and it goes on.
That was
and
with
on,
his broken
all the
shoulder.
way
He
to
had a big back.
99.
Yeah.
So this is the duck.
Stevens wonderfully played. Carey, 50 metres out, sets himself. Look at this. Another one. He's kicked 4 and then gives Melbourne 1.
And then coming in at number 2, none other than Gary Ablett Sr., Howie. He was bums on seats for many
Yes.
reasons. But a lot of people say that because he didn't perform in that last grand final in 95 against Silvani, there was a query. But you go back and you have a look at what he did in 89 in particular. In the qualifying final, 13 and 3. Semi-final, 24, and he kicked 7 goals, 7. In the prelim, he had 23 and kicked 8 goals, 5. And in the grand final, he had 15 and kicked 9 goals, 1. So that was in 89. In 92, he kicked 5, 4, 4, and 3 in finals. And in 94, he kicked 6, 6, 3, and 1 in the grand final. And this is Gary Ablett at his best.
Ball to ground once, and he runs his full distance as Burke leaves the ground. Ablett couldn't take the mark. Oh, he's a light, Gary Ablett. Look at this. Here is the magician at work. He shoots towards goal. What more can you say?
Sandy.
And Sandy Robertson coming in at number 1, and I couldn't go past the record that Dustin Martin has put together. I know that it's been the last 3 years, but it is 3 Norm Smith medals. The first one, a drought breakup for the Tigers, 29 disposals. He kicked 2 goals. In 2019, 22 disposals and 4 goals. And then what he did to Geelong in 2020, when they were gone, Richmond, they were 4 goals down.
Yep.
The goal before half-time, 21, and the way he dismantled Geelong in that second half, I just think he goes in as the number 1 finals performer, 21 and 4 goals.
Very good, Nate.
Didn't quite stick it. Martin to put pressure. Still with Martin. Can he kick a fourth? Oh, he has.
And apologies to Lethal.
No Lee Matthews.
In 78, he had 28 and kicked 4 in the granny. In 83, he had 16 and kicked 5, goals 6. And in 84, which they lost, he had 16 and kicked 4. So, and then in the grand finals where he was a midfielder, he wasn't as prolific in the early grand finals. So that was the reason I left him out.
Criminal.
Not as prolific. He kicked 915 goals.
But I'm talking about finals, Damien. That's the rest of his career.
Chief,
he was a wonderful player.
You're the moral arbiter, but I think Nate's got that wrong, hasn't he?
No, it's a good 5. They're very good.
I like it, Browny.
Well-performed players. I mean, you're talking about Duck and G. Ablett and those sort of blokes, and Jars was an interesting one. Jars, mate of mine. I've always declared Jars on his day the best player I've seen in terms of balance, poise, could mark, kick, both feet. He had everything. But he apologised at the end of the 91 grand final because he didn't touch the ball.
No, he didn't.
You left that out, did you?
Adelaide have won 2 flags, and they don't win 2 flags if Darren Jarman didn't play. Those last quarters were extraordinary.
Right. You're probably right.
We're going to take a break here for Kogan.
No Norm Smith?
Hey?
No Norm Smith?
No Norm Smith.
This
Andrew
is the
McLeod
Triple
won
M
both.
Friday Huddle.
You did win it in 91, didn't you?
So McLeod won 2
Yep.
Norm Smiths and didn't get in there.
Yeah.
That's right, Chief. Would you like me to go through it again?
Well, maybe just some of the ones that missed out because it looks like you completely cocked it up, doesn't it?